A police officer shot in her own home by a fellow officer who was there to serve a restraining order. He says she pointed a gun at his face and pulled the trigger. She says she put the gun to her own head. There's no body cam. There's no other witnesses in the room. And before any of that happened, her fiance called the police department to make sure she wouldn't find out about the restraining order that was coming. And we have those calls. I'm Drew Breasy. I'm a retired police commander. I had 29 years in the law enforcement profession, and my real name is Andrew Baxter. I work with a guy named John. He's an active 911 dispatcher. You know, every good true crime story starts with a 911 call. These calls tell a story that the courtroom hasn't fully told yet, or has it, John?
It's hard to know. This seems like the ultimate he said, she said case. Both witnesses, both Noonan and Fitzsimmons, took the stand already to kind of tell their side. The judge is going to have to decide who's more credible, but the other evidence in this case will help back up their credibility, Drew.
Yeah, and we got a few forensic things that we have to worry about, like where the gun landed, and we're back to physics again, but we'll see what goes on. Obviously, we're not attorneys. We don't practice law. We don't predict verdicts. We just look at operational decisions, the evidence, the behavior. We try to translate what it means from inside the system. So before that, let's just get right into what happened here, John. 3 things that we're going to talk about: system neutrality, whether the North Andover Police Department in Massachusetts kind of remain neutral in this whole thing. Protocol failure. Did the police officers screw up as all of X claims they did? And then this physical truth of where the gun landed. So where are you at so far in what you've seen in the testimony?
Well, first of all, I question the neutrality about this, because what's coming around the bend, of course, is the civil case. And I think whoever wins the criminal case is going to have a substantial leverage in that when it comes time to discuss money. I mean, the defense attorney even said that the police had millions of dollars to protect themselves. In terms of protocol failure, that's going to be something that's your strength. Talking about serving these orders, allowing someone in Kelsey's position to be alone in her room. Would they have normally done that if it was anyone else other than a police officer? And the physics. How does a gun land beside somebody's leg? How does it land under the leg? And again, the believability of those people will be key, Drew.
As we know, it's 2026 and nobody believes anybody anymore. So we're going to run through a few of these phone calls. There's a couple breaks within the calls, John. I just we'll wait to the end and we'll get your reaction. The first call that was made is kind of a coordination call.
North Andover Police and Fire call is being recorded.
Hey, this is Justin again. I'm just calling Lieutenant Whitaker back. I just missed his call, unfortunately.
Yeah, Justin, it's me.
Oh, okay. How you doing, sir? I had a couple quick questions for you again.
Yeah.
So she's messaging me telling me that she's planning on taking the baby up to the land in New Hampshire. Do I have any rights to make sure that she does not leave with that child?
At this point, I don't think we do. I've spoken to my superior.
Yeah.
Filled him in on everything that we talked about, and we don't really have the right to deny her child.
Do I have any rights as the father to obtain my child, since she's had him for several nights now? Do I have any right to, hey, this is the custody, we're both parents here. It's almost my turn to have the kid for the night, so I can know that he's safe and I can go file these after?
Through the police department, no, we don't have that ability.
Sister, who's had a quick question for you as well.
I've seen a lot of this, and so I'm on the page of we need to get the baby out of her hands now, or something really bad could happen. And I know you guys have talked a bit about this, but I am just wondering, is there any difference if she were to try to take the baby out of the state? Does that go against anything? Because that's what she's threatening with. Does the state matter at all? The state lines? It
really doesn't. It's her child.
It doesn't. Okay.
Yeah.
One other question for you, because I think, we're talking about going to the courthouse. How do we, and especially because she is a police officer in this town and everyone talks, and I'm just wondering, if we go file this, how do we, because if she finds out that this is filed before it's being addressed, it's going to end really horribly.
Here's the last part.
The way, if an order is granted, they will then email a copy of the order to us for service. So we would serve it and then enforce it. So it would be like, here's your restraining order. Per the order, custody of the child is awarded to Justin, in which case we would have to make arrangements, for him to come take the child.
Okay, so he would not be there when you're presenting that. I mean, this might be an obvious question, I guess, because if he has the restraining order, he shouldn't be there. Is that
Probably
correct? So
not.
you guys-
I mean, we should probably take care of that. It's okay if he wants to be close by, like,
Yeah.
in order to take custody of the child quickly.
Yeah, right.
You know, he could come if he's in town. You know, we could then reach out to him and say, okay, she's been served. You can come pick up the child now.
Okay. One, just to, I guess, make sure that, because I know you guys will get notified if there is an emergency order put through. Like, I mean, she's an officer, of course. What does she have access to see? I'm just like, is there a way to flag this directly to, you know, the trusted?
No, when it gets sent to the officer in charge. So nobody sees that except the officer in charge and anyone else who has access to that email, which she does not.
Thing I want to point out is, like, we have the graphic that says actual 911 call. That's just our graphic. They weren't actually calling 911 for this.
Did she catch wind while she was at the police station of anything occurring? Like,
nope.
No. Okay.
Nope. I didn't want to tip her off and give her the opportunity to do anything rash.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, officer. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, everybody's cordial. This is the first phone call. This is pre-service. There's a log entry that Justin is saying, like, I didn't want to tip her off, the officer that spoke to her, it was a lieutenant. He said, I didn't want to tip her off, so I didn't give her any opportunity to do anything rash, meaning he's probably read what's in the order. And then there's, there's just this whole sticky situation that you're dealing with one of your own employees too. Like, you've really got to keep that in mind. She's a police officer, and you're going to treat the service of anything at the home of a police officer with kid gloves because it's a potentially volatile situation.
And it's not at all uncommon. Police officers get caught up in custody disputes and complaints of domestic violence and protection orders and things like that all the time. So police officers and police departments are not generally thrown for a loop by these things. They do handle them with special care just because they know how these situations can turn out both practically and legally, Drew.
Next call.
Hey, is this Justin?
Yes, this
Hey,
is.
it's Katie. How are you? I mean, that's a silly question, but I digress. I do care.
This is one of the sergeants at North Andover PD. Just bear in mind, this is after the shooting. She's trying to have a sympathetic or empathetic ear, at least.
You can make whatever arrangements if you just want us to because let's just say if this were, a scenario we deal with in any other case, with restraining orders, there's nothing barring you from returning to your own property except for your own safety. So I can't, we don't have any jurisdiction, and we don't even navigate about mutual property.
So here's another part of that call, but this is John, that's a police supervisor. That's on a recorded line. It's during an active investigation of a fellow officer. And
I have a question for you though. Like, when you're dealing with people and potential future litigants, I would say that Justin could possibly be a litigant, possibly. I mean, when the incident just happened, you don't know who's going to throw into the ring at some point. How do you balance out professional courtesy and trying to prevent situations from becoming inflamed at the point of litigation, expressing sympathy without expressing culpability? Like, when you're talking to people on the phone in situations that are bound to ramp up later, how do you put guardrails on yourself to make sure that you don't say anything that could increase your liability while also not frustrating the person who's talking to you?
That's on the administration to make sure that whoever is involved or whoever's going to field this call or even make this like a very small pool. Like if Justin calls, only this, or this officer are going to be able to speak to him. But you've really got to pre-brief and kind of give instruction, just like you're saying. Look, she's doing a great job in the sense that she's killing him with kindness. She's trying to remain neutral in the sense that she's saying, look, we deal with this all the time. So as with anybody, like, she doesn't want to give the appearance that she's giving him any like special treatment or but again, she has to treat this whole thing with kid gloves, not only because of what happened, you know, with the shooting, but also like, you're right. Like the door is open for him to kind of sue or her to sue. Like it's just bad all the way around. So you really got to be very careful about what you say and who you say it to. But she can't just ignore anybody either. And I think she's, you know, doing a decent job at staving him off. It's just a matter of, you know, kill him with kindness, but sometimes you should try to tell him everything without telling him anything, you know?
Yeah.
You have keys, you have access. I know you live there. We know you live there. We're not going to stand in your way from collecting your property. If you go and do your thing, and just, if you get there and someone's there, we can, before you even go into the house, you know, you could call us and, you know, meet us over at the school parking lot area and be like, they're there right now. Can you send someone by to keep the peace? And
Okay.
we'd be happy to do that for you. We do that all the time.
Okay.
Especially if the roles are reversed.
Yeah.
If you had been asked to leave the house, we do this all the time where, you know, the person who has resided there has a legal right to grab things.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to get as many friends as I can and get out of there as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So here's another part.
Okay,
of that
understood.
call.
Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
You
care.
got it, Justin. Call back if you need any help, okay? And
Okay,
I
will do.
do
Thank
feel
you.
for you. And, you know, I know this is terrible, but you know, a lot of us support you, and, you know, we're all, you know, it's terrible what you're going through.
Yeah, no,
so.
it's
Nightmare. And, I
I
support you,
yeah.
and you're so kind to everybody. So anything you need, let me know, okay?
Okay, thank you so much for your time. I really
you got
appreciate it.
Yep. Take care. Bye-bye.
Look, she has temper issues, maybe. She has depression issues, maybe. Like all these things that probably led to whatever came to a head at that Jack and Jill bachelor party that precipitated this protection order. Like there was a whole layout of, you know, her throwing items at people and just this outbreak of anger. And Justin had this, like, in my opinion, a well-founded fear that she was going to do something to herself or do something to their baby or do something to him. And they got that information in front of a judge, and a judge decided that. That's a judge's decision. That's nobody else. The judge said, yes, I'm going to grant you this. Now, here you go, police officers, go pick up the kid. And Justin, you can get some of your belongings out of the house. But you're right. Once the order was served, now the sergeant is saying, well, we support you. We support it. You know, like this is a bad thing. She's not saying that she doesn't support Kelsey, though, but she is saying that we support you. And that could be a little bit too much.
It all depends on whether or not that Justin ends up being a litigant. He's not a primary person that's involved. This seems very much like North Andover PD, versus Kelsey Fitzsimmons and what's going to be coming up. And Justin will play a critical part in that. But
so the politeness, cordial conversations have kind of come to an end, as we're about to see, because in the next few calls, the demands increase a little bit and tempers kind of flare.
Of treating them cordially is that they begin to think that the police are on their side, and as that goes away, they start to get a little bit more aggressive. Go ahead.
That's true.
Hi, this is Justin Aylaian. I'm going to 125 Phillips Brooks to retrieve all of my belongings today with other members of the fire department. I had spoken to Sergeant Gerke yesterday about what would happen if she said I had full authorization to retrieve all of my belongings, and if her family shows up to call for a police officer. Given the intense nature of what has happened in that house and what her family has already been trying to do, I need to request a police officer is there at 9:30 when I show up.
John, what is how do you handle these calls? First of all, it's by appointment, but second of all, he said all of the buzzwords.
I think that he's trying to use the situation itself in order to get a little bit more leverage. I don't see what the problem is about him going over there anytime that he wants with anyone that he wants to his own house to get his own things. We've talked about the contingency plan for if someone from Kelsey's family shows up, what to do then. That's already been done. So now why do we need a police detail to go in advance to protect someone who has free access to their own home?
All right, so you've heard what's kind of going behind the scenes. Let's walk through what actually happened at the house, or what he's anticipating happening at the house anyway.
Okay.
We're going to be there for 2 hours, and given the potential and the intense nature of what happened there, I don't know what has happened. I don't know what they're going to do, and I'm going to have to request that a police officer is there.
Okay. Yeah, we have. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You know, I left the hold music in.
We don't have hold music.
Justin?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm told that the plan is if anybody does show up to give us a call, we'll be there immediately. We're very limited today on staff, but if there's any issue at all, we'll be there momentarily.
All right. I'm going to have it noted that if something does happen, I requested 2 times for a police officer to be there from the beginning. I want that noted because I will escalate this further because this is not right from given the situation that occurred in that house and the potential for something else to happen. My family should have never been in that position in the first place. Now I'm requesting something that is shit that should be placed there, and you're telling me no several times. That right there is not right.
Justin,
Request. I called yesterday. You gave me this information. I'm calling again this morning, and I'm telling you that. You guys do last-minute details every single day. This is a last-minute detail. Yesterday would have been a detail that was not last minute.
would you like a detail?
I am not paying for a detail.
Okay, all right,
My family should have never been in that situation.
Okay, so he's saying, and to translate, they're offering like, hey, you want cops to come over there, we'll send you cops, but it's going to be an off-duty detail. If you want a detail to sit with you for a couple hours, that's fine, but you're going to have to pay for that. And he's saying, I'm not paying for that. I'm demanding it. And he's citing that because he was involved in that shooting yesterday and that his family was put in danger and put in jeopardy at the hands of his fiance, by the way.
Well,
and
he's saying that he should never have been put in that situation in the first place. I believe it was his ex parte order that sent the police officers to the house in the first place.
When there has been nothing, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they would be capable of. But if you want to wait and find out, that is on you. And I am glad this is a recorded line.
Okay.
So I will be there at 9:30. If you do not have someone there, all of my concerns have been noted. Thank you for your time and goodbye.
What a dick.
Yeah, he's turning into a little dick. Now, he's understandably upset. There's a lot he's been through. He's putting this all on the cops because he should have never been, quote, put in that position in the first place. Well, just like you noted, there was an ex parte order that he applied for that they served, and he would be called when it's time to take possession of his kid. Like, there's got to be a transfer of custody if she's about to be. He was called to the scene because of his doing, not because of the police's doing.
And he also just doesn't seem to understand liability, which is strange for a firefighter. You'd think that someone operating heavy equipment and going into other people's homes would understand the concept of liability. But like, as I said, the police are not really liable because the foreseeability of what happened, it was not foreseeable. But he's also putting the liability on them for whatever happens next. He's saying, I called you and you said no. So whatever happens now, that's on you. And, you know, just don't put that evil on me, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so you said that you were over on Phyllis Brooks gathering
This is yet a fourth call with a different lieutenant this time.
some belongings?
Yep. Grabbed my belongings. The alarm did go off. They had changed the locks. The alarm did go off. Her dad has he set the full system up. He has everything. He's going to know the alarms went off, and I have no doubt in my mind he's going to be driving down from New Hampshire to show up here.
Okay. Whereabouts from New Hampshire would he be coming from?
He's up in the not the Rochester. I forget exactly what town he's in. He's probably about 40 minutes away, 30 minutes away. I don't know if he's coming, but I have no doubt in my mind that man is going to come down with a vengeance.
Okay. I mean, do you think that
I called 2 times. My family should have never been in.
It doesn't matter if he's coming. There's no implied threat by him showing up unless he says, my father-in-law called me and said he's going to come down here and kick my ass. And until we have that, it's not a law enforcement matter.
Well, not only that, if we have that, I would just simply say, okay, we'll leave.
Yeah. If you're afraid, then get out of there.
I called 2 times, once yesterday, once today, and I'm asking for a detail down here for 2 hours. If that's something that you guys cannot do, I will gladly escalate the situation. This is ridiculous.
What do you mean by escalate the situation?
I will go to the media. I will do whatever I have to do to ensure my family's safety, my brother's safety here, and 2 firefighters that are here. If his family comes down, they are absolutely going to be doing something.
Okay.
And if you're saying there's no resources for this, it's insane.
If you need a detail, I can put a detail out.
I will not be paying for a detail given the circumstances of this. You can bring this to the chief. Please bring it to someone, because I am not paying a cent for this.
Why does he feel like he's entitled to this? Just because of what happened, it doesn't mean that you get free services. And we'll respond to a situation in which we already know that threatening behavior is going on. We're keeping the peace. We're responding to something. But this is not the pre-crime division. This is not Minority Report, where a special ball has just rolled down a fun little chute and has told him that something bad's going to happen. Drew, I think you nailed it when you said, well, if you're really scared for your life, maybe you should cheese it.
Given the circumstances and the escalation of this situation, you not providing a detail and having it be your guys' idea is unbelievable.
We can provide a detail, but you're going to be charged for it.
I will not be charged for that. You know what? I am glad this is the 3rd time this is happening, because when something does happen at this location, it is going to be all on that department. Once again, this is unbelievable.
Justin, when he gets there, just call us and we'll send an officer over there to keep the peace.
That's not how it's going to go down, but thank you for your time.
He's also now making threats that he's going to escalate things. Like, what he meant by that, obviously he said, I'm going to go to the media or whatever, but you can't take that for granted, because now if the guy shows up and he ends up shooting him, this is just a mess. But just so we get to know some of the people that are going to testify here, Kelsey is 29 years old. She was a North Andover Police Department officer. She had 18 months on the job. She was diagnosed with postpartum depression back in March. She just got her weapons back in June from another order that had taken department-issued firearms away. Then, as has become adversarial, is Justin Aylaian, and he is the fiance. He's a North Andover firefighter. He's got an Army infantry background. Apparently he was injured and came back to North Andover to be a firefighter. The shooter in this whole thing is an officer by the name of Patrick Noonan. He's a 20-plus year veteran of North Andover PD or of law enforcement at a minimum, but he was an Air Force guy, Air Force Security Police, and he shared some profound trauma with Kelsey. They responded to a really horrible call with one another.
Can you ask the question again?
She gave Noonan her baby.
Oh, yes.
And she gave him the bottle and he fed her, right?
Yes.
And nobody forced her to do that. She made a decision to do that on her own, right?
Yes.
So Fitzsimmons hands her 4-month-old son to Officer Noonan to feed. Here's the video right here. It's so endearing. Look at it, John. Like, he's just walking, kind of rocking the baby. It's just, it's incredible. Like, it's a touching moment that, people think that these police officers were such monsters. And then 5 minutes later, there's almost a deadly confrontation, a kill or be killed with the same guy who's like rocking the baby in this video right here. So go ahead.
Speak to her level of trust, but 5 minutes is a long way to go. And if the situation escalates to a life or death situation, when the baby's handed over, it's not a life or death situation. And it's possible that she's ramping up to that still. And I'm just saying her mentality now, while Noonan's holding the baby, may not be the same mentality in a minute.
Justin Aylaian was concerned for his safety, for his 4-month-old child's safety that he shared with the defendant, and for Ms. Fitzsimmons' safety, specifically after events happened that weekend. So we went to court, and he applied for and was granted a restraining order. Officer Noonan is standing on the landing, watching the defendant in the bedroom. She's on her knees. She's gathering things. He notices at some point that her demeanor changes. She gets upset. At that point, she lunges to her right, forward and to her right. and he can't see what she grabs, but she grabs a firearm. Turns out to be her service weapon. She comes back. She raises it. Before Officer Noonan can do anything, she pulls the trigger, has it leveled at his face, and it goes click. It goes click, excuse me. It does not fire. Officer Noonan takes out his gun, is yelling at her at this point. Kelsey, don't do it. Drop it. Kelsey, don't do it. She is stepping backwards now. The gun hadn't fired, and so she was doing what the officers will describe to you as a tack rack. She has the gun in her hand, she bangs the magazine and attempts to rack it.
And that's when the words, Kelsey, no, are uttered. No law enforcement officer, Judge, the evidence will show, in his right mind would bargain with someone who has their hand on the trigger and the muzzle in your face.
I take issue with that. Like, who is going to dictate the language of a police officer or of anybody that has the muzzle of a gun in their face and somebody has the finger on the trigger? And he's, foreshadowing here, he's going to testify that she pulled the trigger and he heard the click. So is that a deliberate decision to like reload and fire at a police officer when she tapped, racked, and, or is that just a trained reflex that fires no matter what you're pointing at? So that's the question in this case. And he's basically saying, by by Noonan's language saying, no, Kelsey, don't, that he's implying that he should have said something different or should have said it differently.
The evidence here, Judge, will show that he was trying to tell her not to kill herself.
So the prosecution is saying that she lunged from behind the door, that she leveled a gun at Noonan's face, she pulled the trigger, Noonan hears the click, and then yells, don't do it, and then fires at Kelsey. 2 rounds, one of them hits her in the, I think, abdomen or upper chest. The defense is saying, like, the world has collapsed around her because she's losing her job, she's losing her kid, she's losing her fiance, and she put the gun directly to her own head. She was, she was attempting self-harm. She was trying to ensure that she kept the weapons away from all the officers. And when Noonan was yelling, Kelsey, no, he was pleading with somebody in despair. And both of them sound feasible. The difference here, John, is you're in the presence of a police officer and you pull out a firearm.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what policy is. If you think that your life's about to be taken, at that point, you're answering to the higher code of, do I live or die? It's the old saying is, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Right.
And this is really frustrating because you're talking about a very human response to either Noonan seeing his friend and coworker about to take her own life or pointing a gun at him. And you're talking about a totally unprecedented situation, even for somebody who's a 20-year man. And this is where all his training is going to be used against him. The argument is that he was not justified in using this force and that he ought to have known better, and that being on SWAT, being a 20-year veteran of multiple departments, his training is going to be used to make him look like he acted especially recklessly given how he was expected to perform.
I said wherever the baby's going most likely has a washer and dryer. So
this is Patrick. This is Noonan. This is Officer Noonan himself.
Don't be concerned. And then I could tell she was getting upset. She started to shake, and I said, listen, court date is in 2 weeks. It'll be over before you know it.
Did something happen next?
Yes, she was on one knee when she was wrapping up the clothes, and she pushed off with her left foot and lunged behind the door frame. So to my left, to her right.
Okay. Could you see what was there from where you were?
Not from my perspective, no.
What happened after she went behind the door frame?
She reappeared with a gun and pointed it right at me and pulled the trigger.
Can you describe or show us how she did that?
Yep, so when she came around the frame here, she came up and clicked.
Okay. Where was it pointed?
My face.
Okay. After it clicked, what happened?
I screamed her name. I was completely shocked. She had the drop on me.
So you're going to maintain that you got into a gunfight with somebody who was your colleague, right?
Yes.
Who had just given you her baby to feed 5 minutes earlier.
Yes.
Of her own volition.
Yes.
she developed some sort of a homicidal animus towards you for what Justin Aylaian just did to her, right?
I don't think it was unbeknownst to me. I didn't know Justin was in the house. I think I was standing in her way for her to get downstairs and kill Justin.
And did you think well of her?
I really didn't have an opinion. I didn't have a chance to really get to know her.
Well, do you know Maureen Teresi, your neighbor?
Maureen Teresi.
You gave her your opinion of Kelsey, didn't you?
I don't remember.
You called her a whack job, didn't you?
I don't recall.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bradle, I missed the question. Can you state
Sure.
that again?
So I asked him if he knew Miss Maureen Teresi, his neighbor.
Okay.
And I said that he gave his opinion of Kelsey to his neighbor, and that he called her a whack job. And then you can answer again, sir. What was your answer?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
I don't.
Is it possible you called her a whack job to your neighbor?
It's possible.
So that's what you really think about Kelsey, isn't it, that she's a whack job?
After she tried to kill me.
And did he?
And he first said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you know, that press conference, the first press conference that was given made no sense. You know, and at that time he said, I'm the shooter."
What? He said, "I'm the shooter"?
He said, "I'm the shooter."
And what did you take that to mean?
I said to him that he was the one that shot the other officer, is what I took that to mean.
Right. And then what happened?
I had asked him if, well, first I said, you know, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I know when police officers have to discharge their weapons, it affects them, and I can't imagine having to do that with a colleague."
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get the end of that.
I said I couldn't imagine having to do that to a colleague.
And what did he say?
And he had said to me that, sorry, I'm a little nervous. He had said that there was no choice to it. He had no choice, that he had to, she had the gun pointed at him when he came into the bedroom. And
Did he use any
he said
certain
that,
pejorative about her?
I'm sorry?
Did he use any certain pejorative about her?
What
did he call her?
What did he call her?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't call her that at that time. He explained very, very briefly what had happened. And he said that when he came into the room, she had the gun pointed at him. And that it clicked. She clicked it. And I said, "So there was no bullet there?" And he said it clicked, and that he wasn't going to let her get a second shot off, and that he had to shoot her. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I had asked why they went to her house, the three of them went to the house instead of having her go to the station. And why wouldn't they, if they were going to the house to take a baby, why wouldn't they have had some social services there with them? And he said, well, she's a fucking whack job. Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize.
You have to say what was said.
Okay. And he said that she's an effing, whack job.
So was that in response to you saying, why didn't you have social services go to the house?
Yeah.
That's not consistent with her trying to kill you, is it? She's trying to get rid of you.
Can you ask that question again?
The fact that she's trying to remove you from the area where her gun is not consistent with her trying to kill you, is it?
At that point, no.
So you say that Kelsey has a change in her demeanor, right?
Yes.
She starts to shake and get upset, shaking uncontrollably, you said, right?
Yes.
Then she lunges.
Yes.
She's on her knees.
She was, I believe, on her right knee.
You said that she pushed off her left leg and lunged, right?
Yes.
And at the time, you were 3 feet away from her.
Yes.
Maybe less.
Maybe.
So can we agree that's arm's length?
She was a little further away than arm's length, I would say.
So arm's length if you reach over, maybe. How about
yes.
that? Okay. And your testimony is that she lunges over and obtains a gun.
Yes.
Right. And she assumes a certain stance.
Can you elaborate?
Well, you were there. What stance did she assume?
She pointed a gun at my face and pulled the trigger.
And how far was the gun away from your face?
It was right outside of arm's length.
So she's 3 feet away. She assumes the modified Weaver stance, so she's probably another foot or two towards you, right?
She stepped to the left. I don't know if she stepped towards me.
Well, your testimony was that she immediately lifted the gun to you and
yes,
pulled the trigger and tried to shoot you right in the face.
Yes.
So the gun didn't go off.
No.
And there she is with the gun there. The guns didn't go off, and you're within feet of her and the gun that didn't go off, right?
That's correct.
And you didn't just grab her, did you?
No, I was in complete shock. And then she started backpedaling immediately and trying to tap and rack that weapon.
Right. So your testimony is that Kelsey goes from a wounded bird shaking uncontrollably to a female movie action hero, doesn't she?
Those aren't my words.
So this is where a lot of this issue, a lot of the conflicting issue comes in, that the physical evidence is going to try to like solve the whether it was her pointing a gun at her own head or pointing her gun at him.
She starts to point the gun at you. So we agree then that the gun is out in front of her, right?
It was in the upward position. It was coming up towards me. When I fired my second round, I saw her kind of buckle, and she lowered her weapon, and I stopped shooting, and then she went to the ground.
You hit her in the chest. She goes flying back and lands on her back, right?
She didn't go flying back.
She landed on her back, correct?
She went down to the ground. I don't know which way she went. I think she crouched over.
Well, you knew she was on her back, didn't you?
I don't remember. As far as that goes, that's kind of a blur.
So the idea that she's got the gun out in front of her, she falls on her back. If the gun's underneath her, is this some sort of a magic gun?
I don't know where you're getting at.
Doesn't it make sense that if the gun is out here and she receives a force of a 9mm bullet pushing her back this way, how does the gun get all the way behind her and under her leg?
I have no idea. It's the way she fell.
Because Lieutenant Daly testified, as you're about to see in a second, that he found the gun under her leg, or by her leg, actually, is what he said. And, you know, the defense is making the case that if the gun was up here, that it could not have swung underneath her leg. And if it was pointed here, it could have. Like, I don't know how anybody knows that. Like, you're never going to be able to recreate that.
No, the Mythbusters wouldn't be able to do that.
No.
And a key question of it is, you know, when she was shot, did she drop the firearm, or if her finger was in the trigger guard, did she possibly, you know, have some sort of loose retention on the weapon, and maybe when she fell down, the the inertia of swinging around carried it under her leg. Did she move her leg after she fell down? That's I think that science is speculative at best.
When you went up to Kelsey, what was the first thing you did? Was it in terms of first aid or in terms of securing the firearm?
Secure the firearm.
All right. And where was the firearm?
The firearm was by her left leg.
All right. Isn't it true that when you were interviewed by the CIC representatives, you said that the weapon was under her leg?
I didn't hear that. Under what?
Yes, you said it was under her leg when you were interviewed.
By her left leg.
Well, under is different than by.
When I was able to see the firearm when I got up to her, I could
There's
not
no question
see it.
before you, sir. I'll ask you a question. So today you're saying that it was by her leg, correct?
Yes.
And we agree that when you were interviewed by the CIC months and months ago, you said that the firearm was under her leg, correct?
I'd have to look at the exact statement, but
Sure. May I approach her? At that point, Kelsey looked at him and said, "Why?" Didn't she?
not that I recall.
Did Noonan say anything to her?
I think, yeah, and so did I. He basically said, like, calm down and keep breathing.
Okay. Is that it?
That I can recall, yes.
And what about you? What did you say to her?
The same thing.
Kelsey testified.
Part of the order was that you had to give up your firearms, right?
Yes.
Did you say anything to the officers about the location of your firearms?
Yes, I did.
What did you say?
I told them that they were in the basement.
Was that true?
No,
Why did you tell them that?
because I didn't want them to take them away.
Why not?
Because I wanted to be alone with my firearm and take my life.
When did you make that decision?
I made that decision as I realized I had just lost everything in a 15-second conversation with my coworker. So I decided that I was going to take my own life. I didn't want to involve anybody else in that. I'll just...
Did you go upstairs back and forth a couple times, or did you just go up there once?
I think I went up I think I went up at least twice. The second time I went up, I was up there for a while.
Do you remember who accompanied you on each of these trips?
It was Officer Houston and Officer Noonan.
Was that the first time or the second time?
That was the second time.
And was there a visit upstairs before that? Houston and Noonan visit?
Yeah, I was trying to hand them things so they would go away.
Where did that happen?
That happened upstairs. So I was first in the room. You walk up, there's a landing. The room on the left is Caden's room. I went in there first and I put books in a car seat because Justin's truck didn't have the car seat. And I handed it, I don't even know who I handed it to one of them. And I said, can you bring this downstairs?
What was what happened after you said that?
Somebody brought it downstairs and then they came back up.
So you struck out in terms of what you testified to earlier?
Yeah, I just kept trying to hand them things to make them go away.
Meaning, what do you mean make them go away? Be more specific if you can.
Like,
What was the plan?
I knew if I pulled out my firearm in front of a police officer, I would get shot. That was not my intention, and that's not what I did. I was trying to get them away from me, so that didn't happen. So they weren't put in that position, because I'm not dumb. I was a police officer. If someone takes out a gun in front of you, yes, that's a threat. Yes, that's somebody that you probably feel threatened from.
So, but if you want to kill yourself, why not just let it happen that way?
That's selfish. I would never do that. even looking back now, like reflecting for 9 months, I think my decision to do it to myself was selfish to everybody who loves me. So I'll just leave it at that.
I want you to pay real close attention to her tempo, John. The tempo in her voice changes from when she's just answering normal questions to what I would assume was a rehearsed or coached answer. It's coming up. It should stick out like a sore thumb.
Nobody came into my bedroom with me. I was asked, I can't even say who exactly, like I don't know if Officer Houston had come back up at the time, but somebody asked me, who is that downstairs? And I said, I have no idea. And
Let me ask you a little bit about that. What was your state of mind about you being asked that? What were you thinking about?
I was like, I don't know.
Did you hear anybody come in?
No, but they did. I was, because they were on the landing, they would be able to. I was like more into my bedroom than them, so I was like, I have no idea who's here. Shouldn't you guys know?
Okay. What happened next?
Officer Houston walked down the stairs first. Officer Noonan followed him down several steps.
Did that give you a chance to do anything?
That was, I knew, my only chance to be alone with my firearm.
Was Noonan in the door frame by now?
Not yet. He had just walked in, like when I pulled the trigger on myself, with the gun pointing towards my head.
What happened when you pulled the trigger?
He said, Kelsey, no. Kelsey, no. I pulled the trigger. I'm sorry, but I said fuck.
What happened next?
I got shot.
How long after you said that did you get shot?
I don't even think I got to the K in the word before I was shot.
What did that feel like?
What part?
Getting shot in the chest.
Hurt. He was a cop for a long time, and I was considered like a rookie. And like after, I had like a few really bad calls in a row, and everybody kind of knew it. And the senior guys would like check in on me and give me advice, and he was one of those people. And he told me his own personal experience with like calls and how to handle them when they're bad.
So, what was his family situation?
I've met his wife. I knew he had a son just by like talking.
Did you want to involve him in your tragedy?
I didn't want to involve anybody. I wanted to take my own life. I never pointed the gun at a fellow police officer. It never happened.
When you went onto the ground, what did Noonan do after he shot you?
I thought he walked away, and Lieutenant Daly came over to me, and then I think Noonan walked back over to me, and like I couldn't say anything, really, but I couldn't breathe, and I think I was just like, why did you do that? I'm like, it hurts, and then I just wasn't able.
Say that?
I said, why? Like, why? And he was holding my hand. Officer Noonan was holding my hand. And I said, why? I was so confused. I tried to shoot myself, and then I got shot in the chest. Like, nothing really made, like, I was just in total disbelief and shock.
Did you, at any point, before you got taken out of there. Did you hear Noonan saying anything about what happened?
No.
Did you see Houston yet?
Houston, yes. He came in and I think he put like medical like gauze on the wound. Somebody did. He had the medical bag. I remember that.
Were you able to sort of perceive the first aid techniques they were administering to you?
No, I wasn't paying attention to it. I was like trying to focus on breathing because it felt like I was choking. It felt like I was drowning.
Drew, I wanted to point you to this moment of Kelsey's testimony. We'll play it on the screen here, but this is where she says she's talking to firefighters as they responded quickly to the scene as she prepared to get flown from the scene in a helicopter to a hospital that could handle her level of trauma. But she's telling people around her that she wanted to die.
I said to everybody, I'm a fucking idiot. I just tried to kill myself with an unloaded gun. I'm a fucking idiot. I said that to everybody. I said that to the hospital staff. I said that to all the firefighters. I probably said that when I was laying on the ground. Those were the words I just kept repeating.
When you claimed you pulled the trigger, it clicked.
It did.
It was not around in the chamber.
Correct.
There was a full magazine in it, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you had used that gun to go shooting on Friday, true?
That is true. That's why I didn't chamber around, thank God.
There's a whole lot more to this case. It's easy to pick sides in these things, but it's tough for me because I'm telling you, I think that her behavior was likely a product of PTSD. I mean, you know, from the other, she also, by the way, had violence or disorderly conduct type activity in her past and was still hired as a police officer. But she's young. She's obviously a partier, as evidenced by the Jack and Jill party and all the stuff that went down there. And then, you know, if you look at the PTSD symptom list, I bet you she checks a few of those boxes. So, John, I hope the judge can unfreeze us, but we have a verdict.
Ms. Fitzsimmons credibly testified that she never pointed a firearm at Officer Noonan. On the other hand, Officer Noonan testified that not only did Ms. Fitzsimmons point a gun at him, that she also pulled the trigger. Both agree that it happened in seconds near a narrow doorway, and the crime scene photos show that the door frame was made narrower by a clothes rack containing police uniforms that was to Officer Noonan's left.
You brought a gun out in the presence of a law enforcement officer, and she even acknowledged in her testimony.
Well,
I know what that means.
She had lied about where the guns were, so she had some kind of subterfuge going on to begin with, because she said all firearms were safe in the basement, and then this one turns up in her bedroom.
During the closing argument, the Commonwealth argued that it is scientifically and physically impossible for Ms. Fitzsimmons' story to be true because there was a bullet in the chamber, and she said that Officer Noonan shot her without her ever racking the slide after pulling the trigger. I disagree that the evidence reflected that the only way to chamber a round would have been to pull the slide under those circumstances. However, even if I assume that Ms. Fitzsimmons lied about not racking the slide, it does not detract from the adamancy and credibility of her testimony that she never pointed the gun at Officer Noonan, about which he was equally as adamant that she did. Perhaps the Commonwealth could have easily met its burden if the officers had been wearing body cameras. But under these circumstances, I am left with a reasonable doubt, and I am duty-bound to find that the Commonwealth has not met its burden to prove that Ms. Fitzsimmons committed an assault by means of a dangerous weapon on Officer Noonan, and my verdict is, and must be, not guilty.
When I say I think it's probably in her best interest that she leaves the profession, I don't want anything bad to happen to her. I want her to thrive. I want her to like live a full, rich life with her kid and whoever she ends up with.
Manager, not a police officer. you really do have to take two people who just have different stories and say which one of them convinced me.
I want to be very clear about this, though. The 911 system is definitely built to be neutral ground. So no matter who has access, no matter who has the reason or the ability to do some coordination before a dangerous situation or an order gets served, we just have to make sure that everybody is safe no matter what. And if you're feeling suicidal, you can hit 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can call or text it. And if it's immediate, call John. And his phone number is 911. And anywhere you are, John or somebody just like him or somebody just like me is going to answer. And we will make sure that you get some immediate help. We don't want any Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Lots of lives are ruined. And I'm not blaming or shaming her, but lots of lives are ruined because of this. And we almost lost a 29-year-old young mother, to this thing that I've been talking about, that John's been talking about for a very long time. It's post-traumatic stress. And I don't think that people are, I think that people are hung up on this postpartum, and it's understandable. I think people undervalue the social pressures that police officers go through, one, and two, the stuff that they see that their brain is not meant to process, and what that does to your body, especially when when your body is changing after giving birth. So I just want everybody to be healthy and safe.
Yeah, no matter who you are, take advantage of the resources at 988. They can talk to you, give you support, point you in the right direction, create a safety plan for you if you are in crisis. And if the situation is higher than that, we can escalate towards police intervention. But if you're a police officer, especially, just remember to take care of your mind just like you would your body. Your body undergoes stress. You come home every day, you're tired, you're eating junk food, you're eating energy drinks or whatever that you need to press through a shift. Well, your mind is similarly being ravaged. Make sure that you're getting the help that you need, and do it before it's too late. Don't try to put together a shattered situation. Keep yourself from ever getting to that breaking point. Recognize the signs, talk to each other, but put yourself and the well-being of you and your family, ahead of your career. Because if you are well and you are taking care of yourself, your career is going to be much better managed. You're going to avoid situations like this, whether on Noonan's side and questions about his PTSD, or Fitzsimmons' side and questions about postpartum depression. But we have a ton of episodes that you can check out where we've covered cases just like this. Make sure you're checking it out. Also, if you have any questions or comments, make sure you're putting that in the comment section below. We responded 99.9% of all comments. If you I'm curious to have your take, so put down who you think was more credible in the comments below, or what you think should or should not have happened. What you think of Justin, the firefighter who's calling up and throwing around his junior firefighter status weight. I would love to hear any comments, or if you've had an incident like that, if you're a 911 communications person especially. But Drew, check out these other videos. Great episode as always. 10,000 years of content. We will catch you back here next week as well for even more great cases.
And put in the comments who's more credible, me or John. Thank you.
Also, Drew, are those glasses, are they designed to record AI?